Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this regular meeting of the Temple City Council for Thursday, June 19th, 2014. Please rise as Pastor Charlie Day with Emmanuel Baptist Church leads us in the invocation this evening, followed by our Pledge of Allegiance, which will be led by Gloria Elder, Risk Manager for the City of Temple.
Okay, would you please pray with me? Father, we thank you for this day and the scripture that says, "This is the day the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it." I pray that we've all rejoiced today, and we'll continue to do that tonight. I pray that you be with this council and bless them, Father, and just use them in a very mighty way. And we just thank you that we have this opportunity to meet here tonight. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you. Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Citizens who desire, next up is public comments. Citizens who desire to address the council in any matter may sign up to do so prior to this meeting. Public comments will be received during this portion of the meeting. Please limit comments to 3 minutes. No discussion or final action will be taken by the City Council. As I mentioned last time, and everybody was very obliging of this. We are in the middle of a campaign season, so this really isn't the time to do any campaigning from the podium. You can tell us how great we are or how horrible we are or anything in between, but we just probably need to keep any electioneering or campaigning not at the meeting. So if you do that, I sure would appreciate it. First up, Miss Emily McBurney.
Emily McBurney, 607 West Walker in Temple, and I have a very terrible case of curiosity, so I just want to find out from the council, not today, how much this special election is going to cost.
We could probably give you a pretty good idea today if you'd like for us to do that. Tracy or Lacey, either one.
We anticipate that election to run anywhere from about $8,000 to $10,000.
$10,000.
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Chris Coleman.
My name is.
And you're electrifying.
I reside at 206 North 7th Street. I want to thank you for replying to my last letter. I appreciate it. I want to extend an invitation to all City Council members and all the people of the City of Temple. On the 28th of this month, we'll be holding a protest out in front of the VA. We're doing it to tell the VA that their abuse of the veterans in our community is not okay. I'm extending the invitation to everybody because we need to make a statement to the VA that what they're doing needs to be answered and it needs to be taken care of. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Coleman. Mr. James Dean Zeppner.
Hello, I'm James Dean Zeppner, and I reside at 402 South 26th Street in Temple. I signed up to say something this evening about the zoning that in our neighborhood. I'd like to see if y'all could do something about it. And it's a zoning that our neighborhood is a single-family neighborhood, and recently, over the last few years, we've been getting I call them Section 8 duplexes being built in our neighborhood in between single-family houses, and a lot of them folks been there for 10, 20 years. Then all of a sudden the house falls down, catch fire, and it gets tore down, and then builders come in and build these duplexes, but yet they still build little singleplexes too. Now, I just wondering if the city could keep the single family status in zoning areas, then instead of making duplexes and fourplexes in a single family neighborhood. And also on that, I would like to say something about some trees, because everybody's been talking about trees lately. And I really thank y'all for planting trees around, but I wish y'all, when y'all zone and plan new projects, I wish y'all consider where the power lines are, like on 3rd Street and 5th Street by TJC, with all the money that went into a project y'all had. A lot of them trees are planted right under the power lines. And 2 years ago, when the first part on 3rd got started up, now them trees are almost touching the power lines. So I wish y'all could reconsider ideas when y'all planting trees, and maybe y'all could consider planting some fruit trees around the schools. Maybe the 1st graders this year, y'all could say, hey, here's a tree, and maybe they could eat some fruit off of it when season's around and help out with the trees. And there's a lot more, but I think I just end it there, gentlemen and citizens. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Zepner. Ms.
Oh,
Terry,
yeah, can I say one more thing?
yeah, you've got 30 seconds. You can say whatever you want.
I really thank y'all for cleaning up the neighborhood, picking up some of the tires and the debris and the junk that was laying around, and hopefully the signs y'all put up with the $200 fine, maybe y'all could get some of them guys, and if you do, have them clean up the neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stepner. Ms. Terry King.
Good evening. I just would like to address homelessness in this city. Monday's paper had in there where Feed My Sheep, they're trying to get where people can have showers and possibly wash their clothes. This gentleman is concerned about single-family homes in the area. But my concern is, what are we to do with our homeless people here in Temple? The paper stated Waco and Killeen have places for the people to go, but Temple was not in there. Do we not care about homeless people? Do we not know our lives can change in an instant? We can be comfortable in our homes. We can lose it to a fire or a disaster. Yes, maybe if we have money, a family member will accept us, or we can go to a hotel. But shame on the city of Temple. Why can't we be in the paper also? Being considerate, thinking of a plan. I know we're in election season, but when we get you back, you and I and some citizens, we're going to get together and come up with a plan. Because the city of this size should have somewhere for homeless people to go. Okay, the warming centers were fine for a short time, but now the heat is hot. We have a church that was burned. People need shelter. And it'd be considerate if the council would consider finding some kind of remedy. But like I say, when you get back, as citizens, we're going to think of a plan.
Thank you, Ms. King. Item 3, consent agenda. All items listed under this section of the consent agenda are considered to be routine by the City Council and may be enacted by one motion. If discussion is desired by the council, any item may be removed from the consent agenda at the request of any council member and will be considered separately. Council, this is item 3A through 3H. Item 3D, the staff is requesting that this item be tabled at this time. So is there anything else that you'd like to pull from the agenda? All right, if not, I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda, items 3A through 3H minus item 3D.
Mr. Mayor. Sorry, go ahead. Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to approve the consent agenda items A through H without item D.
Thank you.
Second.
Motion and a second, Madam Secretary.
Councilmember Cloud?
Aye.
Councilmember Davis?
Aye.
Mayor Dunn?
Aye. And we don't have to take a vote to table it, it's just tabled. On the regular agenda, ordinances first reading in a public hearing. I'll read both items 4A and 4B. First reading in a public hearing, consider consider ordinances designating the Adams, Central, and C Avenues Strategic Investment Zone as tax abatement reinvestment zone number 29 for commercial industrial tax abatement, and as a strategic investment zone, and authorizing a number of other CIS economic development incentives for property redevelopment. And B, amending the city's comprehensive economic development ordinance number 2013-4626, to reflect the inclusion of the Adams, Central, and C Avenues Strategic Investment Zone as tax abatement reinvestment zone number 29. Ms. Landeros.
Thank you. We're just building off of a workshop presentation that you received last week on possible addition of CIS zones. And just a reminder, our CIS zones are specific areas in the city that, because of their location, their history, or condition, have a greater impact on quality of life and well-being in the city. And the overall purpose of the CIS zones is obviously to make the city a more desirable place for residents and businesses, and encourage redevelopment and rehabilitation of both residential and commercial properties. So there's a lot going on in this item. You have item A, which is actually two parts. You're creating the Adams, Central, and C Avenues Strategic Investment Zone. This is similar to the four other CIS zones that we have now. And as part of those zones, the city participates in grants, usually one-to-one matching grants for things like facade improvements, sidewalks, asbestos abatement, demolition, things like that. So what this ordinance is doing is actually creating this new zone, and it gives the authority to the city to participate in grants in that zone. And the second part of item A is designating this new CIS zone as tax abatement reinvestment zone number 29 for commercial industrial tax abatement. And it allows for tax abatement agreements for commercial and industrial property. Under the current ordinance, we would be able to offer 5-year 100% abatement on the increased value of real and personal property. There are minimum thresholds that the applicant would have to meet: $50,000 or more investment on real property, and $100,000 or more investment on personal property, and 5 to 25 new full-time jobs. And with this ordinance, we're only defining the eligible area. If a entity is interested in doing tax abatement or the CIS grants, they've got to come in and do an application, and we bring that back to you at that time. And then item B is the creation of the new CIS zone and tax abatement reinvestment zone number 29 requires amendment to our current economic development ordinance. So here's just maps of the current zones that we have: the South 1st Street CIS zone, Avenue G and H, North 3rd Street, and MLK. And this is a map that Bryn showed you last week. The yellow is the proposed new zone, the Adams, Central, and Avenue C zone. And I think the next slide is a closer up of that and an explanation of what it would actually cover. It would cover parcels fronting both the north and south side of Adams and Central from the boundary of the existing MLK zone east to 22nd Street, parcels fronting the north side of Adams from 22nd Street to Fowler Road, and parcels fronting both the north and south side of East Avenue C from the existing MLK zone to East D Avenue. Here's just another map close-up of the new zone. So grant incentives that would be offered in this new CIS zone would be very similar to what we offer in the other zones. Facade up to $15,000, one-to-one matching grant, and you can continue down the list. And then we also put in, not every type of property is eligible for every grant that we offer. So residential properties are only eligible for demolition, sidewalk, and code compliance grants. And then on code compliance grants, it's not a one-to-one match, it's actually a 1-to-4 match. So the property owner has to put, say if they want a $5,000 match from the city, they have to be investing $20,000 to get that. And then we have minimum investment for commercial and residential properties, $20,000 for commercial and $10,000 for residential. So, again, the tax abatement, part of it would only abate taxes on increased value of property. That can be for new construction or remodeling, renovation of existing buildings. And then the incentives for the matching grants, we currently have $100,000 budgeted in this year. And we also have some potential, the ordinance allows for in-kind services from city crews. And that's it. And thanks to Bryn for doing the legwork on this.
Thank you. And basically, these, if people apply to this, it doesn't immediately mean that they get those projects. They have to be
Exactly.
approved, and
All agreements come back to council for approval.
right, and all the work has to be completed before any grants are paid to
Exactly.
receipts,
Right.
etc.
I'm sorry, yes, all applicants have a certain period or a certain time frame that they have to complete the improvements by, and the city does not pay any of the grant funds until we are given receipts that the work has been done.
Council, any questions? All right. This is scheduled for a public hearing. This time I'll open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on this matter may do so. Please step to the podium and state your name and address for the record. Yes, sir.
Hello, my name is James Dean Zeppelin. I'd like to talk to you about some of that, most especially on the Avenue C and the 22nd to downtown. Could she show the map of that area again, please?
I bet we
Lori,
can
I'll
find
go
it.
back to it.
This one?
No, it was, yes, that one right there. Most of that area that goes through Avenue C there, it needs really a lot of work done to that area with the sidewalks and stuff. A couple of the dump sites that y'all cleaned up were on Avenue C. And there used to be old trailer house and landed property there. Then on the corner, there used to be an old store. And I don't know how it was zoned, if it was on residential or business, but back in the day, the store owners usually lived on the property or upstairs above the store. Is that going to be considered commercial property or residential property up and down that street in the investment?
Well, I think it would depend on what the current zoning is now. And just like any other zoning request,
Right.
if someone were to change the zoning, then they would need to go through the Planning and Zoning Commission,
Right.
and then, in some cases, come back through the City Council.
Because right up there on 22nd and Avenue C, that's where the MHMR is at.
Sure.
And right across the street, there used to be an old barber shop. It got, knocked down, and it's just an old boarding house there that's been there forever. Then the rest of that street going down, it's pretty much all vacant lots or something like that. Is there any chance that might be changed into a commercial or retail area?
Well, and that's why we look at these investment zones, because we see the need where reinvestment needs to occur. And so by doing this, if we can serve as some kind of catalyst to get redevelopment in certain blighted areas, then hopefully that will foster more private development in these specific areas.
And yes, sir. And also between those two areas, like on 16th Street, mainly towards Central and Avenue A, there used to be some properties there. Two of them are pretty much ragged out. They've been like that for the last 40 years. I was wondering, no one been standing in one of them properties. I was wondering if the city was going to try to get rid of that property or condemn that property and make way for, because that'd be a place, that.
And that's certainly something we could look at, but it's not specific to
Right,
what we're
right,
looking at
right.
right now.
But right in there, it would be a good area for a retail or a commercial zoning area in there, because of the location of it for the neighborhood. But yeah, I think that's a good idea with y'all investing in parts of the city like that, because we really do need it. And it's too bad we just couldn't stream them areas a little bit further, you know, and that'll help out a lot of neighbors there too with the programs that y'all be coming up with.
Got to start somewhere. That's the first time somebody's agreed with me all day, so thank you.
I mean, you ain't doing too bad of a job, to be honest with you, you know.
So, we're recording this, right? All right, okay, good. Thanks, Tom. All right.
But anyway, I just want to point out some stuff like that out there, because that is one of the neighborhood that I stay in.
Well,
And there's a lot of cleanup that should be done in y'all's program. I didn't really see y'all mention it. I heard y'all say sidewalks and stuff, but y'all might consider a little bit of investment of cleaning up the alleyways and some of the streets out there too.
well, the quicker we can vote on this, the quicker we can get started.
All right. Well, I just thought I'd bring that to y'all's
No,
attention,
I
sir.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sepner.
Derek King, 1115 South 12, Temple, Texas, 76504. I agree with this gentleman. East Temple really does and could use some type of change. And I agree with the gentleman. Well, first I want to commend code enforcement and the city. These weeds are coming down. It's starting to look like a real live city. But I agree with this gentleman. As a body, when you're making these decisions, it just seems like somebody's not thinking so clearly. It's just a good idea. But I agree with this gentleman that the cleanup process is just as important as the ideas and the zoning and whatever else. It's important because if you're going to offer space and empty lots and try to make use of them, do something with them, let's keep this cleanup process. See, I'm not just speaking. I got actively involved last year when we had one. So I'm not just speaking. Yes, it's a good idea. I would love to see more businesses in East Temple. But like the gentleman said, you know, the sidewalks is all fine and dandy. But the question that I'm always asked, what are they going to do with all these vacant lots? And when I call code enforcement about a specific area, well, ma'am, we got hundreds of vacant lots. That's not my fault.
No, it's not. It's not your fault, but specifically to this issue.
Okay, but back to the decision. Still, like he said, where is the money for cleanup?
And that's something that we, just like I addressed to Mr. Zepner, we can certainly continue to work on that, just like when you and I had a 30-minute conversation about the cleanup and we got those mowers out and got that area taken care of.
Well, they're still in the process.
Well, it's rained, so we'll keep on working at it.
Well, I'm not here to but like I said, you know, change is just the thought of change.
Do you
it's a good idea.
Do you like this idea?
Yes, I like it.
Okay.
But I like the cleanup to continue too.
And we'll keep on working on that.
All right.
Thank you, Ms. King.
There you go.
Anyone else wishing to speak? All right. There being no one else wishing to speak, I'll declare the public hearing closed. Council, your pleasure on the first reading of this ordinance.
Motion to approve for A and B.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Madam Secretary.
Councilmember Cloud?
Aye.
Councilmember Davis?
Aye.
Mayor Dunn?
Aye. Item 5, first reading in a public hearing. Consider adopting an ordinance establishing school crosswalks and setting speed limits within school zones to conform to school schedules. Mr. Bond.
Council, this first screen is a request from Belton Independent School District to establish 2 school zones to accommodate a new middle school that's being constructed just south of Prairie View Road. And this would reduce the speed limit by 20 miles per hour on Prairie View Road and by 10 miles per hour on the under construction extension of Westville Boulevard for the times indicated. And on the next slide, council is also authorizing the establishment of crosswalks. And the locations indicated are in the construction plans for Westville Boulevard. We're still in the process of determining exactly where those are going to be in the construction plans for the future Prairie View Road improvements. But this also does give the city the authorization to paint crosswalks at the request of the school district when they determine where they're going to need them on Prairie View Road. And the next screen indicates a 15 mile per hour reduction in the speed limit on Searly Road. This is to accommodate a change in bus routing for Temple ISD at the Kennedy Powell Elementary School for the times indicated. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Council, any questions? This item is scheduled for a public hearing. I'll open the public hearing at this time. Anyone wishing to speak on this matter may do so. Please step to the podium and state your name and address for the record. There being no one wishing to speak, I'll declare the public hearing closed. Council, your pleasure on the first reading of this ordinance.
Motion for approval of item 5.
Second.
Motion and a second. Madam Secretary.
Councilmember Quayle?
Aye.
Councilmember Davis?
Aye.
Mayor Dunn?
Aye. Item 6, a first reading and a public hearing. Consider adopting an ordinance to take action on a zoning from agricultural to planned development neighborhood service district to expand an existing boat storage facility on 2.94 acres, being a part of the SP Terry Survey, abstract number 813, situated in Bell County, Texas, located at 13271 FM 2305. Mr. Baker.
Thank you, Mayor, City Council. This item will be scheduled for a second reading for July 3rd. And again, this rezone would allow for the expansion of the existing Arrowhead Point boat and RV storage facility. They would be expanding from 16 units to 111, and the storage would be entirely interior. There would be no outside storage that's being proposed. The expansion would trigger a final plat. And DRC had looked at the conceptual development plan back in early May. On May 19th, the Planning and Zoning Commission did review the request as well as the development plan. There was discussion about the drainage. Since the meeting, both pre- and post-drainage plans have been submitted and reviewed by Public Works. Comments have been generated and revisions are anticipated. As a result, 2 detention ponds are being proposed on the southern portion of the property. As a planned development, a development plan is submitted, and there are 6 criteria, and I'll go over briefly staff's review of those criteria. The first would be the compliance to design and development standards, the UDC and other city ordinances. Primarily, specifically, the exterior building elevations would be a combination of hardy plank, brick, and metal. Screening would involve a solid 6-foot-high fence on all property sides. Landscaping would be required and would have to meet the UDC requirements. Building setbacks, primarily on the side and rear setbacks, a 10-foot setback would be required for new buildings that are adjacent to residential uses. Staff does not anticipate that there would be any significant environmental impacts. No degradation to the neighborhood would be anticipated. Circulation and access will be addressed through further DRC review and the construction documents. Off-street parking and loading within the site and surrounding area would also be addressed during the construction plan review as well as the DRC review of the final plat. Streets and sidewalks would also be addressed during the review of the final plat and would involve a 6-foot sidewalk as well as a 4-foot sidewalk on Arrowhead Point Road. With regard to the comprehensive plan and the future land use plan, the property is actually within 2 designation areas, suburban commercial as well as the suburban residential. The expansion and rezone does comply with the suburban commercial portion, but is not consistent with the suburban residential portion, which would primarily be for single-family uses. The thoroughfare plan is in full compliance. Both West Adams, FM 2305, and Arrowhead Point Road are in place and is consistent. Public facilities that are available to the site, while water is available, there is no sewer, but with the expansion of the facility, the need for sewer or septic would not be anticipated. There is also a proposed citywide spine trail along West Adams, and the development of that trail would also be addressed through the final plat process. Just a map of the surrounding area and the zoning. Again, West Adams and Arrowhead Point Road, this being the property location. The future land use plan, again, as I indicated earlier, the split designation. The pink is the suburban commercial, while this is the suburban residential portion. The just identified area of the thoroughfare plan, Arrowhead Point Road, and FM 2305. The proposed spine trail along West Adams and the alignment. Some photographs of the site. This is also of the existing 16 units on the property. To the north is primarily undeveloped. There are some single-family uses that are not available in the picture. To the south is undeveloped. To the west is the Bell Storage Facility, and that's an existing facility. To the east, primarily in this picture, is a residential property. The boundary actually of the property is right along this fence line, and I did have a phone call from that property owner and did speak with him about buffering and about the setback that was being required with this expansion. With an underlying base zoning of neighborhood services, there are allowed uses that include both residential and non-residential uses. There are prohibited uses which include manufactured homes, the larger retail, discounted department stores, furniture, appliance stores. Again, these are prohibited. There are also uses that are permitted through a conditional use permit process. Within the neighborhood services, there are setbacks. Again, there is a 10-foot setback on the side. There is also a 15-foot front yard setback, and with the proximity of a non-residential use adjacent to a residential use or zoning district, there is the additional 10-foot setback requirement. Additional development regulations that would affect the property. Again, we've already gone over some of these that would be required, but these are also covered under the UDC, which include buffering and screening with landscaping, and that outdoor storage is permitted in the neighborhood services zoning district with certain requirements. However, there's no proposed outdoor storage with this expansion. Just an overall site layout. This is the existing building and the additional buildings that are being proposed. I do want to point out the 10-foot setback to the rear. The two new buildings would be staggered slightly by a couple feet to address the 10-foot setback. One of the your packet included all the elevations. I'm just including this one just for a reference that the 6-foot high fencing is proposed on all sides. This view happens to be from the north, which includes the brick and the hardy plank. However, in areas where the other layer is a metal siding, that would be screened by both landscaping and the solid fence. As part of the application, 6 notices were sent out to adjacent property owners. Staff did not receive any in opposition or in support for the request. In a brief summary, again, as I alluded to earlier, the future land use plan has partial compliance due to the residential future land use plan designation, but with the surrounding uses and zoning, utility plan, and thoroughfare plan, the request is compliant. As with the plan development, City Council does have the authority to add additional standards or conditions to the recommended recommendations. Staff is recommending approval of the proposed rezone from Ag to Planned Development Neighborhood Services with the following 6 conditions. One, that a submittal of a development plan at the time of construction documents is submitted that complies with the development plan in the rezone ordinance. 2, that the council-approved development plan meet all building, fire, design, and development standards. 3, that outside storage in boats and RV and anything else not already permitted would be prohibited except as otherwise allowed. 4, a 10-foot building setback will be provided along the rear south property line to accommodate future development. As I showed in the site plan, that actually is being provided for. 5, if the use of the land were to cease used as a storage facility, future development would have to comply with allowed uses and development standards of the Neighborhood Services District. And 6, the Director of Planning may be authorized to approve minor modifications to the City Council approved plan. The Planning and Zoning Commission on May 19th did recommend a 7-0 to approve per staff's recommendation. And that does conclude my presentation, and I'm available should you have any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Baker. Council, any questions? All right. This time I'll open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on this matter may do so. Please step to the podium and state your name and address for the record. All right. There being no one wishing to speak, I'll declare the public hearing closed. Council, your pleasure on the first reading of this ordinance.
Motion to approve item 6.
Second.
Is that with the recommendations of staff and the Planning and Zoning Commission?
Yes, as recommended.
Okay, I'll second that.
A motion to second. Madam Secretary.
Councilmember Cloud?
Aye.
Councilmember Davis?
Aye.
Mayor Dunn?
Aye. Under resolutions, item 7, consider adopting a resolution authorizing an appeal of standards in section 6.7.5J of the Unified Development Code related to the I-35 Corridor Overlay Zoning District for signs located at the Tranum Auto Group, Goodyear, 5506 South General Bruce Drive. Mr. Chandler.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Just to start off, I wanted to orient you to the site. 5506 South General Bruce is here. It's one of 3 lots that comprise the Tranum Auto Group properties. You've got Charter Oak to the rear here, and of course, South General Bruce Drive frontage. And so the appeal is to allow a Goodyear sign that is 35 feet tall. There are 3 provisions within the overlay code that require the appeal. First one is sign height, which is allowed by right at 25 feet. Secondly, it's the sign setback for this freestanding sign, which is required at 10 feet. And then third is the base dimensions for the sign, which is required at a ratio of 1 to 0.15 of height to width and to be clad with masonry. And so just to show you the site plan, to the right here is actually north, but here are the 3 lots that I referenced. You've got Valero to the left, but the 3 lots comprising the Tranum Auto Group are here. And then the bottom right-hand corner, the top lot, is where the proposed sign is to be located. And the sign would look like this. Of course, as I mentioned, 35 feet tall, and essentially just a standard pole sign. And just wanted to provide some context with a reference that was made in the applicant's submittal to a Firestone sign that was permitted at the same height, 35 feet. And here you can see that sign, which is behind the building. And here it is located to the side of the Firestone building. Once again, that was a 35-foot tall sign that was approved actually with the planned development for Bird Creek. And here is the proposed location on the ground. This is what it currently looks like for the Goodyear sign. And here's the complex, and you can see back here they currently have a wall sign for Goodyear. And just wanted to show you a couple of photos that the applicant provided at P&Z that provide some good context that I did not include in that presentation. Heading south on South General Bruce Drive, you can see the Valero sign in the background, but essentially what the applicant wanted to point out was that the sign would be partially obscured by this tree, and thus that was part of the justification for the request for the additional height of 35 versus 25 feet. And here just a closer up view of that tree and marked where the proposed sign is located. And here is the existing Tranum Auto Group freestanding sign that is 25 feet and was approved with a PD prior to the ability to appeal, and actually was the impetus for code changes for increased height from 8 feet when the I-35 overlay was originally approved to the 25 feet that is currently allowed. And here you can see a close-up view of it, and also a temporary sign used by Goodyear right now that the applicant indicated would be removed if the freestanding sign is approved. And also just to point out that that sign is, while that sign doesn't meet our code ratio for base dimensions for the masonry, it is clad in stone and has a stone planter here at the base. So staff recommendation, which is consistent with what was provided to P&Z, was denial of the additional height appeal request just based on staff analysis, compared with our previous example of an I-35 height for a sign approval for Garland Shelton at the overpass to justify additional height. This analysis suggested that the additional height might not be justified, but of course the applicant did provide the additional photos suggesting that the tree does obscure and perhaps justify that additional height. And then a couple additional conditions for the request, that the base is clad with stone to match that of the existing Tranum pylon sign that we've shown you, and that the Goodyear sign setback is consistent with that of the existing Tranum Auto Group pylon sign, which the applicant has indicated is fine. And so P&Z at their June 2nd meeting recommend approval of the 35-foot tall pylon sign with the additional information about potential obstruction by the tree, and a setback consistent with the existing Tranum Auto Group pylon sign, and then third, that the sign base is clad with stone to match that existing sign as well. And the applicant, Mr. Tranum, is here as well, but I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Chandler. Council, any questions for either Mr. Chandler or the applicant?
Is that a standard setback? The current existing sign, is that further back off the road than normal, or is that meeting the minimum required distance?
It looks like it's perhaps a little bit shorter than the 10-foot, and so that's why we asked for that as an appeal, just to make sure during the permit process that for one, it wasn't going to encroach on TxDOT right-of-way, since a survey wasn't provided for the site plan. But it perhaps is a little bit less than the 10 feet required.
Okay.
Again, nothing for the applicant.
Will the new sign be roughly in line with, as far as that 10-foot setback?
And Mr. Tranum, if you don't mind answering the question at the podium, just so we can get it on record.
It'll be
Kevin Tranum, P.O. Box 1150, Temple. The setback that will come with the new location of the Goodyear sign will be closer to probably 20 feet.
Okay.
Because the TxDOT boundary on all of those pieces of property start off at where the Tranum auto group sign is right now, but then it angles up as it goes north. So therefore, to put it in line with the Tranum Auto Group sign means it'll probably be setting back about 20 feet off of that TxDOT property line.
And that ends up putting it right behind that tree?
It puts it
Basically.
behind that tree, yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Guess they wouldn't cut the tree down,
We
huh?
don't cut trees down out here.
I know TxDOT doesn't.
That is an
Yeah.
old tree. I'm not
just
going to
kidding.
comment on that.
Yeah. Thank you,
But I'll
Mr.
be
Tranum.
happy to answer any other questions.
Anything else from Mr. Tranum? All right, thank you, sir. Council, any discussion? If there's no discussion, I'll entertain a motion for item 7. It has to be one of you.
I know, we're down to 3 today, so, and 2 of us can make a motion. I will make a motion to approve or adopt a resolution or authorize an appeal for the staff recommendations that were presented by Mr. Chandler.
I will second that.
All right. We have a motion and a second. Madam Secretary.
Councilmember Cloud?
Aye.
Councilmember Davis?
Aye.
Mayor Dunn?
Aye. This time I'll adjourn the regular meeting of the Temple City Council and convene the City of Temple Employee Benefits Trust meeting. It's item 8 on the agenda. Conduct a meeting of the City of Temple Employee Benefits Trust to purchase insurance policies for A, MetLife for dental insurance fiscal year 2014-2015, B, MetLife for basic life, AD&D voluntary life and voluntary AD&D insurance for fiscal year 2014-2015, and C, MetLife for long-term disability insurance for fiscal year 2014-2015. Jenny Hain.
Good evening.
Good
Denny
evening.
Hanley, Benefits Specialist. The trust was established so that we could award contracts and save the premium tax. And so that's why we're here today, is to ask you to award contracts that have expired. This year on September 30th, our dental, our basic life, voluntary life, AD&D, and long-term disability contract will end. So we went out for proposal, and you have before you the recommendations from our consultants. Our current vendor is MetLife. We are recommending going back with MetLife based on past performance, as well as many of the rates staying the same, and the benefits has not changed at all. So that's a win-win for everybody. We are asking that you award the contracts in multiple years, and we will come before council in September then to fund each year. And I'll be more than happy to answer any questions or concerns you may have.
Thank you. Council or trustees? Sorry. Different hat. Any questions? All right. Trust, if there's no further discussion, is there a motion?
Motion to approve item 6.
Your second?
Is that 6, 8?
8.
Item 8.
Wait.
I'm sorry, I was looking at, yes, items 8, A, B, and C.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Madam Secretary.
Mr. Cloud?
Aye.
Mr. Davis?
Aye.
Mr. Dunn?
Aye. And at this time, I'll adjourn the meeting of the City of Temple Employee Benefits Trust meeting. Everyone have a wonderful evening.